It's fascinating to me how we went from no info about Elden Ring for 2 full years, all the way to an incredible amount of news within the span of a week. Besides the unbelievable gameplay trailer unveiled at E3, Miyazaki also sat down to give several interviews and revealed more details about the upcoming January 2022 release. Though many questions remain, and many new have cropped up as a result. I don't think I'm being bold when I say that the anticipation is through the roof. However, as a speedrunner with experience from a large variety of games, I can safely say that not every good game necessarily becomes a good speed game, just like not every bad game must immediately have a boring speedrun. There are no doubts in my mind about the quality Miyazaki and his team are about to deliver at the beginning of next year, but regardless of the casual expectations, I have a strong belief Elden Ring has the potential to be a fantastic speedrun, no matter how good the general reception of the game is. I base this argument on 4 major pillars, 2 of which are tied directly to the game, and 2 with a wider outreach. They are freedom, variety, availability, and community. Let's begin with freedom. Previous From Software games have offered vast options to their players in regards to the order of conquering particular mandatory areas defended by several main bosses, all the while giving them the freedom to explore and discover hidden zones and adversaries which might not be required in order to reach the game's ending. The original Dark Souls in particular is highly praised for its world design and interconnected levels, providing the players with a feeling of coherent structure and unity. Even this masterpiece, however, places limits on one's progression. Although the order of tasks is up to the player, the early game focuses on opening Sen's Fortress and access in Anor Londo. In Anor Londo, the main task is to obtain the Lord Vessel. After placing the vessel upon Firelink Altar, golden fog gates dissipate, and the chosen undead can freely choose which direction to pursue first. The goal is nevertheless united, killing the 4 lords and opening the Kiln of the First Flame, the game's final area. With this in mind, I would not consider Dark Souls an open world game, and the thought of Elden Ring being one gets me excited. What we know so far is that the Lands Between, as the world in Elden Ring is called, are comprised of 6 major areas called Legacy, each inhabited by a demigod, a major foe. Whether all of these foes need to be slain or whether some can be omitted is a question remaining to be answered, but I would suspect at least some interaction with them will be mandatory. Miyazaki has confirmed that especially at the beginning of the game, there will be a clear path for players to take, which guides them in order to not get too lost in the vast open world. More importantly though, he has said that the path can be strayed from at any point, hinting at a great amount of freedom the speedrun could enjoy from the very get-go, substantially boosting the routing possibilities of the game. Which bosses are the fastest to reach and in what order? What do they give you? What collectibles are worth obtaining early and which might be delayed until further in the run? The prospect of being able to test different routes right from the start of the run shows a lot of promise to the creative and analytical minds of speedrunners who love comparing time saves and time losses of different ways of progression. Miyazaki also noted that certain areas in the game will only be accessible after other specific zones have been conquered. While this might sound as a limit on the player's freedom, speedrunners will certainly be presented with plenty of opportunities to search for sequence breaks, bypassing these barriers, perhaps allowing for early access to powerful weapons, armor, or other tools. Previous From Software games are far from short on these skips, so there is no reason to think Elden Ring won't follow suit. Additionally, certain segments of the game might also be completed without fighting, depending on the player's choices. I'm thinking about something like the Shura ending in Sekiro, where a dialogue option radically changes the story, but not as drastic. Being able to possibly avoid fighting a boss because of dialogue choices could present itself as a faster option to the speedrunners, though there are cases where completing such a side quest ends up being slower than taking the boss head-on, such as with Calamite and Golf. This point is certainly more speculative, but it plays off the freedom we are promised to enjoy in Elden Ring. Less speculative is the freedom of movement. A designated jump button has been carried over from Sekiro, introducing a whole new dimension to the game's mechanics. We don't even need to know any more specifics about how frequently it might find use, and still get thrilled, as there are speedruns which get utterly broken simply on the basis of having a jump button next to simple and mundane movement mechanics. While Souls titles include a way of jumping after sprinting for a period of time, its use is quite limited. I mean, just have a look at what inconveniences one must go through in order to reach over this railing above Gaping Dragon's arena in the depths. With a single button press, things could be a lot simpler. Besides parkour possibilities, Elden Ring's jump will also be available in combat, widening the range of options for dodging attacks and thus giving the Tarnished more freedom within fights, introducing more potential optimal boss fight strategies. In regards to freedom of tackling enemies, a stealth mechanic will also be present. It is quite clear from the trailer, though in this particular scene the attack from sneaking seems just like a regular R1. One can see the Tarnished also sneaking through grass in one of the revealed extra screenshots. I wonder if it might be as powerful as in Sekiro, or more of an outlying mechanic. Either way, it introduces yet another method of approaching battles and progressing through areas, giving the speedrunners more choices when assembling optimal routes through the game. Last but not least is something we had known about for a while: the horse. When Miyazaki initially confirmed that riding on horseback would be part of the game, as a casual player, I was quite worried. But as a speedrunner, I had hope. Horses in games can be generally buggy and lead to massive game-breaking glitches. What the trailer showed, however, defied all expectations and I confidently say pleased both the casual and the speedrunning audience. Being able to smoothly mount your horse without weight and use it to either quickly enter combat, or on the other hand avoid it altogether, adds even more freedom into the player's hands and is in my opinion a welcome addition to the Soulsborne formula. From the game's first reveal at E3 2019, Miyazaki has promised us a wider RPG element than in his previous games. This means, among other things, more items to collect and build around, but recently we've also learned about skills. Skills look similar to weapon arts from the Soul series, but can be transferred between different weapons. Such option introduces plenty of variety to how one decides to build their character. However, weapon arts have never been of great importance within speedruns and occupy the realms of PvP instead, so I'm curious to see how they're going to play out. Another potentially very significant mechanic is crafting on the go. Now, previously it was possible to upgrade one's equipment at bonfires through smith boxes, but how much on the go will Elden Ring's crafting system really be? And what exactly are we going to be able to craft? I could certainly imagine this feature having a big impact on the speedrun routing, if one could create different consumables such as firebombs from previously gathered materials while traversing the lands between, or even switch infusions on their weapons for the ones particular bosses might be vulnerable to. We have to wait and see to discover the specifics, but crafting could play a key role in adding variety to speedrunning. A returning feature receiving an overhaul is summoning. Summons have never been a big part of Soul speedrunning, though they haven't been completely absent either. Elden Ring is putting a spin on them which might make these companions a little more interesting. Miyazaki stated in one of the interviews that the summons will be spirits of deceased enemies and act as collectibles, carried in the player's inventory. It is unclear how often one can summon these creatures and how powerful they might really be. Balancing companions tends to be a delicate act in gaming, as they commonly end up either being too strong or inherently useless. With this in mind, they could possibly play a role in the speedrun routing depending on their strength, or could also give a definition to one of the potential speedrunning categories. With an open world also comes a shifting night and day cycle along with weather changes. Players' visibility is lowered at night, but so is the enemies, providing further opportunities to utilize the stealth mechanic. Additionally, there are creatures which only appear at night, supposing they drop some valuable loot, or that there outright are some bosses which can only be encountered during this time. These changes of daytime could play a key role when it comes to speedrunning the game, especially if something like an all bosses category exists, where killing these creatures would be mandatory. I wonder how consistent these daytime changes are going to be, if an entire route could be built around them, or if it is something the players might need to actively react to. Similarly, I wonder how many traveling enemies there are, and if their cycles are consistent in any way. If so, losing time in certain segments of the run could throw these cycles off and force the runners to react and adjust accordingly. The possibilities seem wide open here. From the looks of the trailer, the combat seems very Dark Souls-like, but Miyazaki has pointed out that the stamina bar will be less restricting. I wonder how this will play out precisely, whether combat will be slightly more fast-paced, similar to Bloodborne perhaps. From this scene here, we can see the Tarnished counterattack after a successful block, which was confirmed in one of the interviews as well. It will be interesting to see exactly how a counterattack like that is performed, and if it might be similar to something like a parry and a riposte in terms of needing specific timing. Both this and the jump button should make combat more varied and give the speedrunners further opportunities while mapping for optimal punishes of each particular attack, providing the speedrun strategies with more depth. What exactly do I mean by availability? Primarily the fact that the game is coming out on all available platforms, current and previous generations of consoles, and mainly on PC. PC speedrunning tends to be the most comfortable and consistent, as it allows for load removals to be employed with ease, erasing the differences between varying loading times on different machines, thus ensuring fair competition. Furthermore, PC provides easy access to practice tools such as save file managers, tools to enhance speedrunning practice and testing, or map viewers, which provide valuable information and more than once led to massive skips being discovered. We can also expect the game to be patched at least a few times after its release. During this process, certain useful exploits might be fixed, and the fastest speedruns could require older versions of the game to be used. This is always problematic on consoles, and console players pretty much need to choose between the current patch version or the release version through a physical copy of the game, while most games on PC have access to all patches freely, making this much less of a concern. The game's release on PC also means we should expect the modding community to get to work, and while mods might not be directly connected to speedrunning, modders often collaborate with the speedrunners and glitch hunters and provide valuable insights due to their knowledge of the game's code. This deep understanding is usually much harder to reach with a console-exclusive video game. As I stated earlier, the anticipation of Elden Ring is off the charts, coming from a broad spectrum of fans. This will surely not only bring in new faces, but primarily attract speedrunners from all of the previous From Software games, potentially uniting the runners of Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro all under one big roof, at least for a period of time. This could result in great competition and extremely quick speedrun development, where sleeping for more than 6 hours means waking up to hundreds of new Discord messages. The prospect of a fresh new release with such an interest around it gets me excited. There is nothing better in speedrunning than the community collaborating on breaking the game as much as possible and building the speedrunning routes. The bigger the community, the bigger the potential discoveries. With great power, however, comes great responsibility. And with many converging opinions about speedrunning coming together, I've noticed a trend where new releases such as this become sources of conflict. Deciding on the rule set of leaderboards, preferred timing methods, and separating specific categories are always points of contention. I'm a big fan of the leaderboards staying closed for at least a couple of weeks after the initial release, in order to sort all of this out, and with the freedom and variety Elden Ring might bring to the table, I would expect these discussions to take a while. In any case, as long as the arguments are well moderated and civil, most of the community can focus on enjoying the game and exploring the copious amounts of speedrunning opportunities it is sure to present. And I can't wait to see what the community unravels. The freedom of the open world, variety from new and broadened RPG elements, availability on all platforms, and likely wide community outreach all in tandem give Elden Ring the possibility of being a truly fantastic speed game. Are you just as excited as I am? Will you be trying out the game as soon as it releases? And will you be watching its first speedruns? Let me know in the comments below. January 21st can't come soon enough, but for now, thank you for watching and have a great day.